And what's more, if you look at these red curves and arrows, what are they? They are the lifeline of the Chinese economy because they are the energy routes. And who control these routes? The U.S. Army, the U.S. military, especially in 4 of the most critical straits. The Strait of the Bab al-Mandeb, which means the door of the tears, right? On at the bottom of the Red Sea, and then Hormuz, and then Malacca and Taiwan, all 4 of them. So which means, if you are a Chinese leader, what would you feel? Then, if you know anything about the Weiqi, which is also called Go in Japanese, they call it the game of games, the most complicated game in the world. In Weiqi, it does not aim to kill the enemy. It aims to occupy territory by constraining the territory that you win. Right? So, thinking in this grand chessboard, in the title of the book of Brzezinski, the grand chessboard, then what should China do faced with these constrainment of the United States, plus the predominance of American military power? Well, of course, you say, well, you modernize your military. Of course, China does that by the military budget. Well, people say, oh my God, China is going military. But let's have a comparative, and also like in the United States say, well, that's even only a public figure, and its own estimation is at least twice as much. Even then, you can see actually, comparatively, compared with the United States, the American military budget is literally off the chart. And you don't see China catching up in any near future, even with a higher percentage of increase in military budget. And so the problem is China still has its own security to defend. What to do? You have to do it somehow. And that's where the military, the conception of power comes in. Now, when we talk about power, we almost always think on the first level of conception, which means it is conceived as a bordered resources container. Container because it's the border, the frontier. And then whatever is in there, whatever material or intellectual property resources you have, is the resources in this container. You have military power, personnel, budget, GDP, science and technology, right? That's what our concept of power is. But the problem is, very reputable research have verified that in history, at least since the World War II, 3/4 of all conflicts were not won by more powerful countries. Then we have a problem. If you are a strategist, you have to base your calculation and your strategy on some basic concept of power, or some basic logic of power, right? But if this does not hold, does not bear out in empirical studies, then you have a problem. And so that comes to the second level of power, because then we may think that maybe it's not because weak powers wins over strong powers. Maybe it's because our conception of power is wrong. Maybe we should not conceive power in this way, right? So then what are other ways to conceive power? That's where China's conception of power comes in, is to conceive power as strategies. Strategies because, well, we have, for example, in Iraq War, at the very beginning, you have like the video game-like warfare you see on the TV screen, shock and awe. For anti-war people would be say shocking and awful. Both. But once it enters into the ground of battlefield, it really doesn't matter that much, all those high-tech stuff. Why? Because the context of battle has changed. And it's not like you have a priori that you have designated a certain resources power, a certain wave of power, then you can use it everywhere. That is effective in whatever context. So it is in this sense that conception of power as strategies, you have to first define the context of conflict and see what strategy and what resources needed to be used for appropriate measures for this kind of context of conflict. So it is therefore not appropriate to say, well, I have power, I have GDP, I have technology, and then whatever it is, I can use this to apply. Rather, no, you actually have a la carte to choose, but then you study the context, and then you choose the capabilities, right? So that's the second level. But then you have the problem of, well, you choose a strategy, but it may not necessarily guarantee victory. If it does, that would be great, right? Then all the war will solve the problem. But then if I choose a strategy guaranteed to win, you choose a strategy guaranteed to win, then there's no winning. So that means the second level of conception of power also has its problem. Then the best way to conceive power would be as outcomes. Whenever we win, then we say we have power. And then go back to look at what we use and what we chose and what we had. But that has another problem is, well, we go backwards from the equation and from logic, and then we have to find and identify the factors and logic and the strategies. Necessarily, we have to isolate them from an organic base context of social interaction. And if we isolate these elements and then apply it into another context, it may not work the same way. So it has its problems as well.